eventful couple of months for the Boston Celtics. First, Jason Tatum is likely to miss all of next year after rupturing his Achilles in Game 4 of the Eastern Conference semifinals, and we know what he can do, an all-NBA player that's averaged at least 25 points in each of the last 5 seasons. Then, on Monday, Boston traded Jrue Holiday to the Trailblazers for Anthony Simons. The Trailblazers also take on $72 million owed to Holiday the next 2 years, and then the Celtics GM Brad Stevens just continued to cook. On Tuesday, they shipped off Kristaps Porzingis in a 3-team deal. The pair of trades puts the Celtics under the second tax apron, saving a projected $180 million in tax penalties. So, Shams, they've come out of this having saved millions of dollars, and they've added assets in the process. What more can you tell us about what might be coming next for Boston?
I'm told they are getting phone calls on Jaylen Brown and Derrick White. The Celtics, of course, their preference would be to keep both players, but there is a level of listening going on here. They have set a very high price threshold for both players, so it would really take a massive offer to get either player for sure. And at the end of the day, they did accomplish their goal this week. They got out of the second apron by trading away Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis. They've shed $180 million, but they are still in the first apron. They're still a luxury tax-paying team next season. Is that the lane that they want to be in with the uncertainty of Jason Tatum? So their phone lines are open. It's not definitive that they're going to trade either one, but they are listening across the board.
Yeah, Chene, the Celtics don't win a championship last year without the contributions of Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis. What's your reaction to Boston making these moves?
I don't know how my brother Shams can say that with a straight face, because this is wild. If they're taking phone calls on Jaylen Brown and Derrick White, it's wild, but it is the reality of the current state of the NBA. Yeah, I made Shams smile while he's still doing his work. But if you think about it, when it comes to the Boston Celtics, this is interesting because I think right now we see that you can't just have 1, 2, 3 stars in that type of payroll. You have to have one central star, and then you have to build a supporting cast. But the real interesting thing also here is the fact that we've had 7 different champions in the last 7 seasons. It is so hard to repeat, and we all felt a year ago that this team was primed to do so. Not based with the second apron, with the finances, new ownership. We're going to look at a new look Boston Celtics. I'm really surprised that we're at this point, but it is the reality that many teams are facing.
Look, I will say covering the Celtics for about 3 years, it's like a ritual. Every offseason, calls are coming in for Jaylen Brown. So I'm trying to figure out what's real,
right.
what's not happening every single offseason. With so many question marks in the East, Chene, for teams like the Celtics, the Pacers, and the Bucks, which team is in the best position to capitalize on all this uncertainty right now in the East?
You know which team that's like looking to the left and looking to the right, and I did that backwards, which is wild for me, but it's been a long day, and is panicking and like, oh my gosh, how do we get to this position where we just have to act cool? It's the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're like looking around like, oh my goodness, where a lot of people were worried and panicked a month or so ago, knowing that this was one of the top teams in the NBA. Now you're looking at this roster saying this actually might be the team that can compete for the future. Right now, given the opportunity, given the nature of it being so wide open, I mean, Donovan Mitchell had probably his best year when you combine his basketball play, but also his IQ and his leadership. They have depth. Evan Mobley, Defensive Player of the Year. You know, you look at the squad on both ends, they were top of the league, top 10 offensive rating and defensive rating. They're like, oh, don't panic now, guys. Like, we might actually be able to accomplish what we wanted maybe a year later, but that might be better for us.
Yeah, Shams, now we look towards the Rockets because they also had a great year. And this morning, you had some news coming out of them with Fred VanVleet. What more can you tell us?
I'm told Fred VanVleet has reached agreement on a 2-year, $50 million contract to stay with the Rockets. He's going to have a player option the second year of that deal. So the Rockets are declining a $44.9 million team option, and they negotiated this new deal with Clutch Sports CEO Rich Paul. But this gives the Rockets a level of flexibility this year. It's lower than that team option number, and this is on the heels of, over the last 11 days, Steven Adams reaches an extension. Ime Udoka reaches a big extension, and then you get that blockbuster acquisition of Kevin Durant. This is obviously a Rockets team that's positioning themselves to compete for a championship in the Western Conference. Do you think back 2 years ago when Tillman Fertitta and that Rockets organization went out and got Dillon Brooks and Fred VanVleet? They're in a much different place 2 years later.
Hey, come on.
We know you want to.
Come on.
We know you want to.
It's in heaven. Shams All of your Rockets updates have freaked me out, but guess what? The news on the other side of it have been fabulous, and he's absolutely correct. This is a team, we know the West is wild. It's going to be difficult for anybody to go up there and rival the Thunder, but the Rockets are making all of the right moves. They addressed their needs in Kevin Durant because this was a team that really struggled making jumpers, struggled in the mid-range, struggled in the half-court. You plug that hole, you keep your coach, you retain veteran leadership in Van Fleet and Steven Adams, you retain Alperen Şengün, Jabari Smith Jr. You guys know the list goes on and on. Amen Thompson, even Reed Shepherd, the Rockets.
To Portland, Kristaps Porzingis to Atlanta. What do you think about what Brad Stevens is doing, Ashley?
I just want to say he is better in the front office and behind the scenes than he ever was as a coach, and that is no shade. What this man has been able to do, first of all, you're able to flip someone of Drew Holiday's age, and this is no knock. I still think he's a phenomenal player. Defensively, he's a unicorn. We don't see guys like this anymore, but to flip Drew Holiday for everything, multiple picks, and a player under the age of 30, Simons is what, I believe 26 years old? That in itself is impeccable. I don't know what the Portland Trailblazers' love affair is with Drew Holiday. They keep trying to get their claws into him. They finally did. But the way that he's been able to get the Boston Celtics in that second apron, below the second apron, without really being too messy is very impressive. That is a veteran front office guy. He knows what he is doing. It is impeccable, but I will say this. I still think there's more dominoes to fall in the Boston Celtics organization. I don't think we're done seeing moves. I think that, with the sale of the Boston Celtics and the payroll being so high, and this year essentially being a wash because Jason Tatum is probably going to miss most of, if not all of this season or upcoming season, I think that the Celtics are going into next chapter mode and saying we're going to have Tatum, obviously, but maybe this year is a wash, and maybe this is the year that we figure out what this new variation of the Boston Celtics are going to look like. That's how it's looking, at least.
I still think they're going to play the same style. I still think they're going to spread you out. They're going to shoot a lot of threes. Simons is one of the best three-point shooters in the Western Conference. He kind of fits in with him and Pritchard and Jaylen Brown. I still think they're going to be a playoff team, be a top 6 team in the Eastern Conference. But to Ashley's point, things
could still change, and there are reports that there are teams with top 10 picks who are calling the Celtics saying, hey, what can we do to get a Jaylen Brown or to get, one of your star players? I want to let go of Jaylen White.
That would be a mistake.
Avery said yesterday, no, Jaylen Brown's off limits, but Derrick White, if we can get a few first-round picks for him, then maybe.
I want to mention this because it's less sexy, and we kind of joked about the Drew Holiday thing. If you were following Portland late in the year last year, they got hot. There's talent there. You know what they're missing? A veteran presence, a guy who's been a professional, who's been through the wars. Like, you brought Fred VanVleet into Houston, boom, 41 wins, boom, 53 wins, 2 years. Drew Holiday goes to Portland. I'm not saying they're going to be a top 5 team in the Western Conference, but they got some young guys that can play, and they started to go late in the year last year. The Ayton thing hasn't worked out as normal, but that's a squad I'm already thinking over. That's a regular season team that I think is going to be hovering right around 500. I think it's a fantastic move for Portland.
I think that going back to Jaylen Brown specifically, that would be a mistake.